Afternoon VC, Harris here with another video, kind of a response video. I was watching a new channel called The Vinyl Stockholm. I think the chap's called Jonas, and was that Jonas? I think it's Jonas, isn't it? And he's a new chap, very good, fantastic. Seems an absolutely lovely chap, and he's from Sweden, and a beautiful looking room. That's like most Swedish people, aesthetically pleasing, looks fantastic. The room, incredible. He did a video called My Vinyl Manifesto, which was like 6 or 7 points of how his manifesto towards buying vinyl is. And his last point was, be the king of your collection, or you're the king of your collection, therefore ignore any lists like mine if you want to. Which anyone with half a brain then would realise that he wasn't being particularly serious, and he was saying go forth and do what you like. Anyone with half a brain, unfortunately, I don't fit that criteria. So, and Jonas did take a little bit of heat apparently in the comment section, because he had to do a response video. I don't think he needed to. Never have to explain yourself on the VC. I think that's a rule, isn't it? But yeah, he seems like an absolute marvellous chap. I left a comment for him, and he responded, and he just seems lovely. And it's a great channel. He's into sort of 70s sort of psych folk, I think. So not necessarily my bag, but yeah, really engaging chap. So I thought I'd bring up the points he raised and respond accordingly. First point he made: record collections should only contain first pressings or only pressings. I could sort of meet him halfway on this a little bit. This is the problem I've got with it. Let's say you're a kid and you're into the Smiths, and a lot of kids who have just got their Crosleys and they're into the Smiths. The Smiths appeal to 14 to 16-year-old kids who are. There's always going to be a kind of teenager who's attracted to J.D. Salinger or Sylvia Plath poetry, and they're the sort of kids that are going to be attracted to the Smiths. And they probably want to go for The Queen is Dead. This is the original UK press. Now, when this came out, it had about 60 pressings in 1986 all over the world, and it didn't really have any other pressings. It's very much a cassette album, actually, The Smiths' Queen is Dead. Quite unusual, probably one of the biggest cassette albums. So if a kid wants to buy a first pressing, believe it or not, this is going to set them back about 50 quid, 60 quid in decent condition for a 1986, because it wasn't really repressed until about 2009. Any previous pressing that is still going to cost them a bomb. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of get it, and later pressings have been problematic for me, especially in the vinyl revival era, let's say 2012 onwards, because there's no pressing plants, so they're all overloaded. And the people who used to master records in the 70s and 80s, they're probably dead. A lot of the times you've got people mastering records who probably aren't familiar with mastering vinyl. I mean, that's just logical, because there was a 20-year gap. And there's no Q&A. I mean, you look at that, there's a picture on the internet of Rubber Soul being checked by about 300 women in white lab jackets. They were checking 1 in every 10. That just doesn't happen anymore. So, yeah, I can't quite meet in there, but I will say modern pressings I struggle with a little bit. The other thing he said, he's a big fan of Big Star. So that presents another problem. If you want to buy a first or early Big Star pressing, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. And that's if you can find one. You're going to have to get it off Discogs. Do I want to buy a record for 150, 200 quid off Discogs? That's dangerous territory for me. I want to be able to have the thing in my hand when I'm buying it. I was a Big Star fan around 92 when Teenage Fan Club came out, and they were huge in the UK, at the UK weeklies. And the UK weeklies kept mentioning Big Star, who I'd never heard of. I immediately wanted a load of Big Star albums, rushed into London, went to Tower Records, and I bought Radio City and the first album, and they're both on the Edsel remaster. So not exactly an early pressing, but these sound fantastic. Beautiful glossy sleeves. Sound wonderful, these. What an album this is, by the way. This one I'm kind of a hit and miss on, but marvellous stuff, the first Big Star. Don't have Sister Lovers. But these were on Edsel in 86. Sound fantastic. At the time, they were £8.99 in Tower Records. So, yeah, I could kind of meet you halfway. I think there's an issue with modern repressings, but I wouldn't expect anyone to, or some kid with The Queen is Dead, to try and search out, because how are they going to afford it? Anyway, point 2. Here we go. No compilations or best of albums. This is where I have to draw the line. This is madness writ large. No compilations or best of albums. That means you're going to have to forego the greatest album in the world. I think we can all agree on that. The Buzzcocks singles Going Steady. Incredible. We're going to have to forego Ramones' Mania. Wonderful stuff. Doesn't include Don't Come Close, which was a top 40 hit in the UK. In fact, there's a clip of them doing it on Top of the Pops. Introduced by Dave Lee Travis, the Hairy Cornflake. It's my favourite ever Ramones song. But yeah, we'd have to go without that. We'd have to go without the Undertones All Wrapped Up. Oh, what an album. We'd have to go without Nick Lowe's 16 All-Time Lows. Oh, come on. We'd have to go without the Smiths' Best. Wonderful stuff. We'd have to go without the best of REM. The IRS years. This is a wonderful album. Wonderful album. Better on cassette. You get more tracks. We'd have to go without Divine Madness. I mean, come on. No Divine Madness, no life. We'd have to go without Now That's What I Call Quite Good by the House Martins. Come on. What? We'd have to go without Decades by Duran Duran, taken from Radio Tay Music Library. If anyone out there is from Radio Tay Music Library, can you please stop emailing me? Yes, I know my fine has gone up to now 2,700 quid. I'm working on that. I was going to use the money to save a panda, but, you know, you want your money back, so, you know, just stop emailing me, yeah? Well, GoFundMe below, by the way. GoFundMe below. The Bangles, greatest hits, yeah? We're going to have to go without that. Hazy Shade of Winter. And most importantly, we're going to have to go without... If you want to get my Human League greatest hits, you're going to have to prise my 5 cold dead fingers off of it, because this is the album that you need. It's a thing of wonder. If you don't own this, then you're not going to own the Lebanon, yeah? Which is probably the greatest critique of war written in the history of popular music, yeah? What's that, Bob Dylan? The answer's blowing in the wind. It's not now, mate. Piss off. Phil Oakey's over here, mate, splitting the atom. Thank you. Wonderful stuff. And how many times? I'm amazed. It's got all the chart positions inside. I used to love this inner sleeve. I was obsessed by it. They had 10 top 10 hits in the UK. The Human. They were my Beatles. I always say they were my Beatles. And not just great. That means you just can't have various artist compilations. Like the amazing Kent Records in the mid 80s were putting out wonderful things. Kent, Stop Dancing. I mean, look at this. Kicks off with the Louie Louie by the Kingsmen. Then 99th Floor, the Moving Sidewalks. Then it's got Sha-La-La by the Shirelles. Then Oh No Not My Baby. Oh, Washed Ashore on the Lonely Sea by the Platters. Come on, you'd have to live without that. And also they did Meanwhile at the Go-Go. Just as good. Starts off with the Ventures Hawaii 5-0's theme. Then Irma Thomas, Breakaway, which Tracy Ullman covered. But this what a version that is. Then maybe the greatest record ever, When You Walk in the Room by Jackie DeShannon. Oh, it's just... Papa Ooh Mau Mau by the Rivingtons. I'm not living without this. Come on. So, yeah, not having that one. So, buy the single. This was his third point. Buy the single if not released on the album. I can live with that. I can live with that. An example being maybe the greatest single of the last 30 years, 35 years. You Made Me Realise by My Bloody Valentine. They didn't include it on It Isn't Anything. Monstrous. Changed music for me. It's just the greatest riff. It was our version of grunge in a way. It was Kevin is from America, but he moved to Ireland. But the most mind-bending single of my lifetime, You Made Me Realise by My Bloody Valentine. The riff of all time. So I'm with him on that. I'll take that. Next up, stick to the format the music was released on. I kind of know what he means. I might temper that. The obvious problem is that a lot of records were released on multiple formats. Now he used the example of the Magnetic Field 69 Love Songs, which has 69 tracks. Great example. I'd agree. I wouldn't buy that on vinyl. My counter position would be buy the format that works best for the album. An example, I bought 7614 by Global Communication on vinyl. It's kind of like a 90s version of Brian Eno's Music for Airports. I was really looking forward to this on vinyl. It sounds great, wonderful ambient album, wonderful. A lot of people don't like it, but I love it. But I originally owned it on CD, and I've got to say, it's better because it's ambient. You don't want any surface noise, and it's a piece. It just works for 76 minutes and 14 seconds. It's just wonderful. You can just zone out and listen to it. So that's what I would say. Buy the format that suits the record most. Another example, The Descendants' Summary. Came out in 1991. It's the sort of the best of The Descendants, SST pop punk band. Came out on vinyl, I think, in 91, but it would be almost impossible probably to get hold of. But because there's 26 songs on here, and most of them last about a minute and 20 seconds, it just works fantastically on a CD. If you've got it on the double vinyl, you're getting up, you're turning it, it flows wonderfully. And there's a few you want to skip on here as well, so you can just move your CD in. So yeah, that would be my argument. Buy the format that suits the record. Another example, Jonathan Richmond, the legend from Boston. I could be talking about Rob there, couldn't I? Rob from Boston, but equally legendary is Jonathan Richmond. This only came out in, I think this came out in 91, and it was, it only came out on CD, but I bought the vinyl copy because it's a wonderful album. It's quite a short album, and it just works on vinyl really well. So I'm happy with the vinyl copy. Again, so it got reissued about 5 years ago. Great album this, love it, absolutely love it. Your collection should not contain any filler. That seems common sense, doesn't it? That does seem common sense. Hey Harris, how do I do that? I know what you mean. You're buying records blind sometimes. How do you know if there won't be filler? I can help you there. I've done a list of bands that are objectively going to create filler within your collection. Let's have a look at them. Rush. That's a given, isn't it? Coldplay. I think even Coldplay would agree with that. Hoddle and Waddle, Diamond Lights. And they put out, anyone outside the UK is going to be confused, but trust me, you don't want anything by Hoddle and Waddle. Stench Trench. I think we can all agree on that. I was going to say the Wurzels, but I heard Tony Blackburn play I Am a Cider Drinker the other day, and I thought, actually, that ain't bad. So the Wurzels are going to get a pass. But yeah, other than that, yeah, if you do buy stuff that's filler, it makes sense. Trade it in, sell it, trade it in your local shop, get some beans for it. You're laughing. His next case, don't believe the hype. Yeah, that seems, particularly box. I think the VC can trick you into this. You'll see some doyen of the VC, a hard hit, an iconic figure, buy some £1,000 box set. The only reason they're buying a £1,000 box set is they've got the album already 8 times and they're not listening to it anymore. They're doing it for clout, probably. Don't fall into that. The jazz issue is slightly different, maybe. I think I see some people buying jazz records that probably aren't into jazz. Some people buy jazz records that are probably, they quite enjoy jazz. Yeah, just try and stay clear of hype. It's difficult, FOMO and that, but yeah, I think that's a good rule for life. Don't be a completist. Yeah, this one's easy for me. A great example would be, for me, Casey and the Sunshine Band. This is their second album, one of the most wonderful albums ever produced. Let It Go, That's the Way, Get Down Tonight, Boogie Shoes, Ain't Nothing Wrong, I'm So Crazy, I Get Lifted, Let It Go. A thing of wonder, this album. And the follow-up, part 3, even better. It's like the Ramones of disco, this. Ends up with the greatest segue ever, which I'm Your Boogeyman goes into Keep It Comin' Love. Keep it comin', love. Oh. But I don't need any more KC and the Sunshine Bands, other than those two. And there's about another 39 albums. But I think that's a pretty sensible rule, that don't be a completist. So, Jonas, thank you very much. It was a great video. Made me think, encouraged me to do a video. And yeah, if you want to subscribe to vinyl.com, I would recommend you do. He seems like a fantastic chap. And I'll speak to you all again soon.